Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Always love to have Julie Cripe on. She is a soldier on the front lines of individuals when it comes to their financial freedom and their investments, protecting their businesses at a time really that they could never be, they've never been more vulnerable, in my opinion. She's with a company, a bank called Omni Bank, and it's exactly like it sounds, omnibank.com to learn more about it. It's a regional bank and very hands-on in a way it helps its customers. Julie, welcome to the program. Kind of tell us more about Omni Bank, things you'd like the listener to be aware of.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. We're basically a commercial bank. We do a lot of business with small businesses, and many of our customers have been with us for 25, 30, 40 years. And that includes light manufacturing, service businesses of all types, restaurants, just about every kind of business you can think of, hotels, you name it. And we like customers that are small business people. We believe that they really run the economic engine of this country, and I can tell you that most of them have done just fine, not as well as they would like to have done in the last 4 years, but they're not, they're still keeping on with their business and they're keeping people employed.
Yeah. Am I strange or odd, but it seems to me that the reason why people need more help from the government is that government is doing things to make it harder for them to do it for themselves.
Yes, and I you may be strange or odd, but not for that thought.
Hey, you've been talking to my wife. That's not very nice. But anyway, go ahead.
It's true that there is excess burden on small businesses and small banks, and all. Let's not even get started on just the healthcare issue, but all kinds of regulations that have made it more difficult for them to do business in this environment, and the uncertainty of what regulations may be coming down the pike have kept them from investing in new buildings or new equipment or adding that third shift.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's kind of, building their cash and holding tight until they have a little more certainty about what's going on. In the meantime, they're going to keep on keeping on, so to speak. They're going to keep doing what they know how to do, but things are tougher than they were 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah,
I agree with that. And I think what's interesting is I have a friend of mine I kind of consider a mentor of mine. He's old enough to be my dad. In fact, he's got 2 children. If I were one of his kids, I'd be the middle kid. And so he's phenomenal, very successful, incredibly wise. And we go out to lunch at least once a month, And he said, I got to tell you, if I were trying to get started in business today, and he was not a silver spooner. I mean, he remembered sharing a bed with 2 siblings growing up, and he remembered, his dad telling him, hold on to that car door good or you're going to fly out the door. And, he remembers those kind of things. And he goes, I honestly just don't think I could make a fraction of what I was able to accumulate if I were to try to start in business today.
No, I think from starting a business or a bank, which is a business in this day and age, there have been no new bank charters issued in the last 5 years. Since
5 years? Are you kidding?
Not a single one around the country. I'm not just talking about Texas.
Wow, and that was a growth industry through the mid-2000s.
Right.
That's incredible. Meanwhile, how many banks have closed?
There's been I think about 100 failures last year, which is not as many as in the 80s, but from a consolidation standpoint, you're talking 500 to 1,000.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's too expensive, even though there's a bill in Congress and every congressman or woman you talk to wants to pass it. It's a small bank relief bill. They've got too many other things on their plate, and I just heard Monday that that's not even going to make it anywhere for anybody to vote on. And I'm talking about it's bipartisan, Senate and Congress. Everybody wants to do it, and they're too busy with a lot of other stuff. So.
Well, and that's a great segue, Julie, to the fact that a lot of the bigger banks are responsible for the mess that we're in because they already knew they could comply with a lot of these regulations. Didn't they see it as a way of being able to harm the regional banks that are their competition?
Do you mean do the big banks see
Yeah,
that?
the big banks were probably supportive of some of these far-reaching so-called reforms that are actually been really damaging for consumers because it's going to lead to fewer choices, I think, over time. Don't you see it as almost like a form of protectionism for the bigger banks?
I think so, but I don't think it was a conscious effort on their part to do it. I think they fought for their side. They were bigger. They knew they were too big to fail, which means they were too big to pay attention to whether some of the people in their bank were doing the right thing or not, or at least that's their story. And so do we really want to be a country that only has 5 large banks like Canada or Europe? I mean, some people, academicians, will say, yes, that's a more efficient system. But then you get back into more control from a government, and we see how well that worked in Europe. And in Canada, you can't buy a house unless you have minimum of 20% down, and generally 30%. And there are no 30-year mortgages. So if that's where the country wants to go, I tend to think we're a little more entrepreneurial, we're more independent, we're more used to what we have, and we want to give everyone the chance who works hard to get a home, and if they want one. But the problem was what happened. People who already they weren't buying homes to live in, they were buying them for spec.
Right. Yeah.
And they would, that's where it got off.
I think a lot of people want people not to be able to pursue the American dream of homeownership, personally. I think that's what they want. I think they want people to be forced to be more dependent on the government. I believe that there's a part of their modus operandi, I'm afraid, and they are unfortunately dominating the political and policy processes of today, in my opinion. So what is the update? I mean, you mentioned what happened on Monday, which is not the news people wanted to hear. What other things are going out there that our audience needs to be aware of, and what would you suggest they do?
Well, I think some of the biggest things right now for small businesses and individuals are these breaches, and I think everyone needs to send a letter, an email, a tweet if you're into that, whatever you do to your representative, state, local, on up to Washington and beyond, that this is one thing where I agree we have to adopt what the Europeans have, and that's that little microchip in the credit cards and the debit cards, because we are all at risk, and it's a huge problem where some teenager basically can get into a system like a Target, for example, and get everybody's information. And they're selling it to other countries, and as you see, they captured some people at the border that had a bunch of cards with this data on it that had been captured. And most of us just go along, and please, please don't put your PIN number anywhere around your debit card. I know people who used to put a sticky note on there with it on there. If you can't memorize it, then put it somewhere far away from where you carry your debit card.
Don't make it too easy, that's for sure. Julie Cripe,
right.
She's with Omni Bank, OMNI, that's Omni, omnibank.com. Phenomenal information, as always. A great part of this program. Really fighting the battle for consumers, business owners, anyone out there who want to save money, which I would like to think is everybody, and like to be able to leverage money to build their own American dream, which is part of what you help people do, too. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Okay, bye.
When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you the best content here. It shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter.